Yeah, it is. And it's a really good one. It's one of my favorites to sing. So, and my mom's playing it for me.
Well, if I
So.
can help you in any way, are you going to wear a long gown or
Oh
anything?
no, I'm just wearing this.
Well, you should have a long gown on.
Oh no, it's not formal,
Okay,
but.
okay. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you. I'll be
Oh,
there.
thank you. Oh, good. All right, glasses. We got about 5 minutes. Oh, well. Well, one's from last week and one's from this week. Um,
Of the flame, please bring forward the Christ candle. Namaste.
Beloved of God, right where you are at this moment, the Spirit shines through you. Infinitely, God, you are the light of the world. I'm Bernie, and I welcome you to Unity Spiritual Center of Waco this morning. Just as a reminder, if you'd please ensure your cell phones are silenced. Please be able and join in our congregational singing.
These are the hands, this is the voice to celebrate the goodness of God. I lift up my hands, I lift up my voice to celebrate the goodness of God. So as we wait, our hearts wide open, fill us, we pray, that we may walk in the fullness, the wonder of your grace. These are the hands, this is the voice to celebrate the goodness of God. I lift up my hands, I lift up my voice to celebrate the goodness of God. We hear your voice in the silence, a whisper sweet and clear. And it is then that we discover your presence ever near. Ours are the hands, ours is the voice to celebrate the goodness of God. We lift up our hands, we lift up our voice to celebrate the goodness of God. To celebrate the goodness of God. To celebrate the goodness of
Let us say together our statement of truth, which is on the screen. There is only one presence and one power in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotent. We are a beacon of love and light for those who need this spiritual home right now. Let us say together our vision, mission, and unity principle for today. Our vision: to awaken an awareness of spirit in our lives through practice of timeless spiritual teaching. Our mission: raise consciousness, transform lives, heal the planet, one person at a time with me. And for our unity principles, these ancient universal principles taught by unity are foundational guidance for living abundantly and staying in tune with your own divine nature. And number 2, if we can say together, human beings are innately good because they are connected to and an expression of spirit. And now for our daily word, Sunday, November 17th, is prosperity. Perhaps the greatest gift of prosperity consciousness is freedom from worry. It is knowing that as a divine being, I can draw from an infinite house of divine ideas and prosper myself in infinite ways. This awareness helps me keep the things of the world in proper perspective. Like anyone, I know times of plenty and times of lack. Understanding my prosperity as a spiritual truth and not the quality or number of my belongings or the amount of money I have in the bank gives me agency to direct my life. I am prosperous. As I affirm this truth again and again, I grow richer in divine ideas, building blocks of everything on earth. And for today's Bible reading is from Matthew chapter 6, verse 25. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body or what you will wear. Is not life food, and the body more than clothing? And our affirmation for today, I'll say, and then we can all say together, I release worry and know prosperity. Release worry and know prosperity.
Thank you, Bernie and Lucinda. Well, this is the time when we have an opportunity to get up and greet one another. Hello with a hug, a handshake, or a fist bump. And we also want those of you that are joining us by live stream this morning, realize that you were not able to join us last week. Our internet was out, so we're glad to have you with us this week. Is that right, Steve? Okay. So, yes. So, let's get up and greet one another now.
Second Congregational. Of course, as usual, may remain seated.
How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deep you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you are connected to my soul. How deeply you're connected to my soul. How deeply you're connected to my soul.
I think I may have shared with you the first time we sang that at our church in McKinney. A father went back into the baby room and got his almost newborn baby and sang that to her, and there wasn't a dry eye in the place. So, well, good morning again. I'm Reverend Margo Ford, and it's a pleasure to welcome each of you to Unity Spiritual Center today. Together we affirm and celebrate our unity, our oneness with each other, oneness with all that is, and our oneness in God. As we remind you each week, your presence is essential, for each of us is a unique aspect of the energy that expresses as Unity Spiritual Center of Waco right here and right now. And we know that none of us is here by accident or coincidence. Unity is a New Thought denomination, yet New Thought is nothing new to the world. It is, in reality, a synthesis of the greatest spiritual concepts from the minds and spirits of humankind across the ages. In Unity, we believe that all people are created with sacred worth, regardless of gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or creed. And we know that neither God nor unity anyone out. So let us join together now in prayer. Divine Spirit, essence of all that is, as we come to this morning, we are grateful. We are grateful for one another. We are grateful for the understanding that your presence enlivens each and every one of us. It's a beautiful time of year when the leaves are changing, and we know that it is the beginning of a new season, that it is changing. It will change again into winter and into spring. And we remember that the only changeless thing is your presence. You are the one and only changeless being, essence in the universe. And we remember that it is in you that we live and move and have our being. We hold in our hearts all who have asked for prayer, for healing and health, for prosperity, for comfort, support, and divine order. And we affirm that the right and perfect situation is unfolding for each right here and right now. And we especially hold in our hearts children around the world who are experiencing violence, war, abuse, hunger, and poverty. And we affirm holding them in the light, in your presence, divine, knowing that on the spiritual level they are whole, perfect, and complete. And yet we feel sadness for the plight they are experiencing right now. We remember that, excuse me, we remember that we envision with great compassion, with great conviction, the leaders of our country, the leaders of all countries of the world, being inspired by your divine presence in them to come together in a spirit of and unity, so that there may be peace across our entire planet. It is written that when the disciples asked Jesus, "Lord, how shall we pray?" He said to them, "Pray like this." And together we say the Lord's Prayer, translated from the Aramaic, the language that Jesus and his disciples spoke. And the words are on the screen. Infinite presence, which is everywhere. Your name is sacred. Your kingdom is come. Your will is throughout the earth, even as it is throughout the universe. You give us our needful bread from day to day, and you forgive our offenses, even as we forgive our offenders. You let us not into materialism, but you separate us from error, because yours are the power and the song and the praise from all ages, throughout all ages, sealed in faith, trust, and truth. Amen. Each of us is the light and love of God, spiritual being having a human experience. You are God's beloved, and we embrace you today. Do not see any children in our midst. That makes me sad, because I love it when the children are here. However, we do have an opportunity to envision the children of the world, especially those who are experiencing, as I said, war or abuse, poverty, and so forth. And so we hold all of those children in our hearts, and we hands together with nice warm energy and envisioning the children. We say, children of the world. We love you, we bless you, and we behold the Christ in you.
I'm going to put a bottle of water on the piano. Don't tell Mom. And I, just like everybody else this morning, seem to have a little bit of the old tree pollen thing going on. So in the middle of my song during the bagpipes, I'm going to take a sip because then I have to belt it out. Anyway, so today's talk is called Touched by the Light of Grace. And it's really kind of funny how this came about. I'm going to be singing one of my favorite songs that I sung not too long ago, and that is I Made Grace, but not this morning. I'm singing it this afternoon at the Greater Waco Interfaith Conference service. And I had conflated that when Margo first asked me to sing it. I thought she meant for the GWIC thing, not for this morning. And so I was like, well, what am I supposed to sing for? Anyway, there's another song. Believe it or not, there are many songs with the word grace in them. But this one is actually by Melinda Wood Allen, who is a good friend of Sue Riley's. They actually co-write songs together, and they they perform together quite a bit. And this one I have done before, but it's been 2 years, I think. So it's nice to come back to it. And it does get big and bad. So, if you need to hold your ears, I will not be offended, because I can get real loud. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it. I love singing it, so I hope you're hearing it. Whenever you're ready. Grace from above me, grace from below, grace deep within me, grace is all I know, grace from the heavens, grace from the earth, grace is all around me, everywhere I turn. All is good, all is well, all is grace, all is grace. It's all good. I am well in this grace, this loving grace. Peace from above me, peace from below, peace deep within me, peace is all I know, peace from the heavens, peace from the earth, peace is all around me, everywhere I turn. All is good, all is well, all is grace, all is grace. It's all good. I am well in this grace, this loving grace. Joy from above me, joy from below, joy deep within
Cindy, you are truly amazing. We just are so blessed to have you. Well, you may have noticed that the title of today's message is Touched by the Light of God. I'm sorry, by the light of grace. But what is grace? What is grace? We were raised in faith traditions that taught that grace had to be earned by doing special deeds to please God, so that with enough grace we could find a place in heaven this life. Anybody ever hear that? I heard that. However, in Unity, we believe in essence that grace is about experiencing and embodying unconditional love, compassion, and support from Spirit, which blesses us in some way. We'll be talking about that more as we continue this morning. A number of weeks ago, I gave several people an index card with the following quotation, which I copied from a back issue of Science of Mind magazine. And it said, "Have you ever had a chance encounter with someone who proceeded to alter your world in an unforeseen and amazing way, be it a teacher, a soulmate, a child, or a pet, that raised your joy level in a way you could never have imagined? Or was there an idea that somehow landed in your field of awareness, giving you the courage to move in a direction that totally shifted your life for the better? Maybe you just kept your mouth shut when you wanted to say something hurtful, and you didn't." If you said yes to any of these, then it sounds like you have been touched by the light of grace. I asked each one of the people to think about times when they had been touched by grace, and said if they could remember such an event in their life, to share it with me so that I could share it with you. I believe people really like hearing stories, particularly stories about people they know, and stories give us an insight into our own lives. You may remember that twice in the past we had stories from several people in the congregation in response to this idea of being touched by the light of grace. I couldn't believe it was 6 years ago that we did this. So anyway, each person's story is about being touched by the light of grace, and each story was different and meaningful and uplifting, clear evidence of how their lives were transformed, even for just a moment, by the events that they shared. And that's why I decided once again to ask some of you to share our stories with us. So they did. Being touched by the light of grace happens in myriad ways. Sometimes an opportunity arises out of a difficult or desperate times, which might not have happened if our lives were running in perfect harmony. Seems like that a bit like what happened to Susie. Here's what she wrote. She said, the Houston company for which I was working in an international finance position went through a leveraged buyout. The new owners laid off approximately 1/3 of the employees, including me. As part of my search for a new job, I networked with people I had known in college. One such contact told me that their former manager had recently moved to Houston to serve as the international treasurer of a company called Cooper Industries. My contact suggested that since this former manager had recently been in the job market for an international position, he might be able to recommend firms I could include in my search. Acting on that suggestion, I contacted the international treasurer and arranged a meeting. During our meeting, I told him I was looking for a position that would take advantage of my education and experience in international banking and finance and give me an opportunity to further my career. He asked me many extremely in-depth questions about my background and qualifications, almost like a job interview. As it turned out, it was an initial job interview. He was the initial stages of developing a new position in this department and ultimately created a job description which matched my background and experience. Although he was required to post the job internally before looking outside to candidates, since the job requirements were so specific to my skills and background, no internal candidate was qualified. I was offered the position, which was a dream job for me. It was exactly the type of opportunity I wanted. I ended up working for Cooper Industries in a wide variety of exciting and fulfilling positions in international treasury for 19 years. Even an event from childhood that stayed with you as something so special is a good example of being touched by the light of grace. Alice agreed to use this story in my message this morning. In grade school, Alice started taking piano lessons. She really loved playing and looked forward to each lesson. However, she was unable to practice what she was learning because they didn't have a piano. They lived in a 3-room flat, and money was typically fairly tight. As it happened, one of Alice's little friends was also taking piano lessons and was able to practice at her Aunt Corey's home, who lived right next door. When Aunt Corey found out that Alice had no place to practice, she immediately insisted that Alice should come to her house to practice. Aunt Carrie's was a household with many people, so adding 2 7-year-olds to the mix so they could practice piano was a truly kind and generous act. Alice took piano lessons for a long time, and ultimately her mother was able to purchase a refurbished piano for her. Alice told me that if it were not for Aunt Corey, she probably would have never gained the love and skill for the piano. Surely she was touched by the light of grace. But that's not all. Aunt Carrie was also friends with the high school orchestra leader and introduced Alice to him. When she learned to play that's when she learned to play the violin and was introduced to real classical music. Alice played under the direction of Mr. Big and an Australian man for 3 years, which had an enormous effect on her life. Seems to me that was a whole 3 years of being touched by the light of grace, 3 years and beyond. Maybe we remember something wonderful from our childhood, as Alice shared with us. Again, being touched by the light of grace could have happened as a result of what one of our children did. When I mentioned sharing stories of being touched by the light of grace to Don, without hesitation, he told me about an incident that happened many years ago. As he told me, I could clearly see the emotion that he was feeling, and here's what he told me. Just remembering those events brought up that emotion. He said when their girls were still young, he and Linda were on a very tight budget. There wasn't much extra after the bills were paid and the groceries were bought. But one day they were grocery shopping in one of those super centers that has not only groceries but everything else imaginable, including Barbie dolls. Sandy, who was about 5 or 6 at the time, saw a Barbie doll and begged her mom and dad to buy it for her. They told her that unfortunately they were sorry, but they really couldn't afford it right now. Just as they were getting ready to check out the groceries, Don back into the store, got the Barbie, and put it in the cart. Sandy's eyes widened with surprise and joy, and she said, "I just knew my daddy loved me." Linda also shared with me some of her thoughts about the blessing of family and a very special way in which she continually is blessed by the light of grace. Here's what she wrote. "There's nothing more important than family, and I such a loving family. The surprises fill me with joy so often. Donnie always shows his love in so many ways, and I feel I can never do it like him. Our girls are so filled with love and giving. They care for people and so many animals. They are always smiling." And then she added this, "I have a beautiful plaque that says, 'I'm so glad you are my parents.'" She said, "I see it every time I'm ironing, and it warms my heart." And speaking of family, I love this sweet story that Sandy Londo shared with us. She wrote, "Some women say they marry for money. I married for my mother-in-law. From the moment I met her, I experienced the grace of acceptance, light, and love. On my wedding day," she said, "if you have any trouble, Skippy, you just let me know." How much grace there is in that, knowing you are loved and accepted just as you are. It's not just grace, but a true gift from God. Something very unexpected and unanticipated touches us by the light of grace. There's another unique story that happened some years ago that Susie shared with us. She was in the market for a new car, and I hope I get this right because she kind of just told me the story, and I hope I don't mess it up. Anyway, she was in the market for a new car and really wanted a Honda, but for a variety of reasons, Hondas were almost impossible to find in her area. So after much searching, she went to a dealership to buy a different car. I can't quite remember what kind of car it was, but definitely not her first choice. She picked out the car she liked best, and while they were beginning to write up the paperwork for the sale, Susie noticed an auto carrier truck pulled outside the window where they were sitting. It carried Hondas. She was like, "Wow, I really wanted a Honda," to which the salesman said, "Hey, problem, go pick out one you like. Here, it's first come, first serve." So Susie got her Honda. For me, I think of being touched by the light of grace as at just the right place, at just the right time, that if it had been a few minutes earlier or a few minutes later, we kind of like Susie's story. Yet sometimes being touched by the light of grace is something so simple and is the recognition of it that touches our hearts and spirits. And that's how I saw the story that Karen shared with us. She wrote, "As I sit on my porch in the early morning with my coffee and watch the sunrise, I'm reminded that I am blessed with another day, another chance. It reminds me that life is anew for another day, and as the rays break through the clouds to shine down on us, it warms my soul and gives me strength to face any trials that may come my way. Life is ever changing, and our inner strength is an amazing resource, like the rays of a new sunrise." Sweet surprises can turn up just at the as Sandy Londo tells us here. Sandy said, "As executor for my Aunt Jane, I planned a memorial service which she expressly did not want. However, I believe those services are for the living, not for I needed closure, and so did her friends. It was December when I arrived at her suburban Chicago home, which I would be emptying and selling. My aunt was an avid and master gardener. Flowers were one of her major talents and loves. I pulled in the driveway. Melting snow was on the sides and streets. As I walked to the door, there on her front rose bush was one single red rose in full bloom. Wow. I still see that vibrant rose on what otherwise looked like a totally dead bush. And I added a moment of being by the light of grace. It was a message from my aunt. I knew all was well. As Sandy shared with us, sometimes we receive message from a dear one who has passed that touches our hearts in a very special way. Ellis told me that she knew that her husband Don always kept a journal. When he made his transition into new life, his journals were comforting to her. Don was never one to show or speak about emotions that he might be feeling. So when Alice found a totally separate journal expressing love and caring and sweet sentiments about his children and grandchildren, it was a very sweet moment, blessed and touched by the light of grace. Sometimes it's only in retrospect that we recognize how we were touched by the light of grace. However, there are times when we know the moment's happening, how very much we are being touched by grace. What an incredible opportunity Spirit has offered us. It may be especially true when one is the vehicle through which a dying wish may be granted. So I'll now tell you my story of being touched by the light of grace, a story that some of you already know. One Saturday morning, within the weeks of the Supreme Court's ruling that gay marriage was lawful, I received a call from my friend Randy, the minister at the Methodist Church down the street. One of his congregants had contacted him to say that two women who were friends of hers wanted to be married, and one of them was on her deathbed. Reluctantly, Randy informed her that due to the restrictions of the Methodist Church, he was unable to marry the couple. However, he told the friend that he had someone that he thought might do so. When he called me, I assured Randy I would be totally honored to marry these two women. He told me it would have to be that afternoon because Sharon might not make it through the night. Officiating at a marriage between same-sex people requires significant changes in the wording of the ceremony, which was a bit challenging since I had to do it so quickly. However, I felt guided by Spirit to find beautiful and meaningful words. When I arrived at the home, Sharon and Debbie greeted me teary-eyed, and I found a room full of family and friends, including Sharon's adult children and Randy, gathered around Sharon's bed in the living room. Sharon was so close to death that although she was awake and aware, she was too weak to say the vows. So we found a proxy to speak for her and to place the ring on Debbie's finger for that part of the wedding ceremony. At the end of the ceremony, I said, Sharon and Debbie, it is my honor and delight to declare you married and partners in life and for eternity. At 5 o'clock the next morning, I received a call that Sharon had just passed. I went to be with Debbie until the funeral home came for Sharon's body. That moment of being touched by grace is an incredible way to be some of the most precious moments of my ministry. So, as we conclude this morning's service of stories, and I thank each of you for your contributions of being touched by the light of grace, I invite each of you to remember many times in your own lives when you've been deeply touched by grace, even if you choose never to share those stories with anyone. So let's take a moment now to go into our time of meditation. And as always, I invite you to become relaxed. Take a deep cleansing breath and feel yourself supported by the chair. And so for this time of meditation, I invite you to remember, to envision a time in your life when you were touched by the light of grace. Vision that time, wrap your thoughts and your heart around it, and just allow it to fill your heart with joy, peace, and love. Now, as we allow our to return to this time and this place, we give thanks for the many times remembered that we have been touched by the light of grace. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen and amen.
This is the time in our service when we have an opportunity to give back to the work of Spirit through our own offerings and our tithes. We give in love and gratitude for our own prosperity in its many forms, which comes to us through God, our instant, constant, and abundant source. Will the ushers please come forward? I invite you to hold your offerings in your hand as we say our offertory blessing together. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all of the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive, and I am grateful.
Will the ushers please come forward again so we may bless these offerings?
My gift goes forth on the wings of love, and his hands were rich and heal and bless. It returns to me, multiplied a thousandfold, as the universe says yes, yes, as the universe says yes.
Before we circle up, I want to tell you a couple of things. One of them is that the guys are going to be bringing down the Christmas decorations after the service this morning, and we're going to decorate next week, which is the last Sunday in November. And the reason we're doing that is because the first Sunday in November, Don won't be here. He's betraying us. He's speaking somewhere else. Not really. But anyway, so they're going to bring everything down today, and then after the service next week, those of you that can be with us, we would appreciate your help and joy in decorating for Christmas. So, alrighty then, shall we circle up?
If I can wear my hat.
I'm sorry?
If I can wear my hat.
Hey. So let's just take a moment now to look at the wonderful, beautiful faces around this circle, knowing that each is an expression of God's divine presence. See the sweetness and the love and the joy and the beauty in each one. So, shall we say together our prosperity affirmation? We run through growth and prosperity of Unity Spiritual Center of Waco, and we are grateful. In our prayer for protection, the light of God surrounds us.
I am the light of God.
The love of God enfolds us.
I am the love of God.
The power of God protects us.
I am the power of God.
The presence of God watches over us.
I am the presence of God.
Wherever I am, God is, and all is well.